where the subject of human rights is no longer in vogue, during a time when the notion of peace is not trendy, in a period where anti-war activism is out of fashion, in the current environment making these subjects and notions unworthy of headlines or coverage, I am going to break with the trend, ignore the fashionable, and say a few words on the vast differences between patriotic nationalism and pseudo-nationalism. In mid-2000s, during the height of my media interviews and lectures, I was the first person to coin the term pseudo-alternative media. When the birth of alternative media was being revered and celebrated as the path to real journalism and truth, my warnings were against the trend and so very unfashionable. As is still the case, being fashionable and popular was not what drove me back then. What the deep state, via its politicians, media, think tanks, and front organizations has been presenting and advertising as nationalism, and the rise of nationalism is not nationalism, has nothing to do with real nationalism. This is a ploy, it's a tactic. It is calculated and then implemented via popular media and social media. It is distorting nationalism for a purpose, to widen the gap between us, to quickly and effectively divide us, and by doing so pave and smooth the way for its intended wars, chaos, and the ultimate goal, conquest. A divided, chaotic Middle East and Europe. A divided, hate-driven party line in the United States. A world divided along false and fortified extremes of the right and the left. I have lived in several countries, from the US and the Pacific to the Middle East and Southeast Asia. I have traveled extensively around the globe. Currently, I'm based in Turkey, the epicenter on the geopolitical fault line. The trends I see here among the people on what constitutes nationalism, patriotism, exactly mirrors what I see and have been seeing in the United States, while both mirror the general trend worldwide. To give you an example, when I state certain facts and points, all documented and frankly very obviously factual, facts that illustrate certain negatives that actually harm Turkey's own interests, I'm immediately criticized, attacked, and disowned as a gringo, as an enemy who is in the other camp. When I write or talk about certain positive aspects, I'm cheered and celebrated as a real Turk, a hero. Now on the mirroring. When I put forth certain statements of facts on the US, let's say on issues such as the immoral notion of private for-profit prisons, or the severely broken and lacking healthcare system, or hypocrisy-ridden human rights record, I become the target of applause and ovation from the left and a target of boos and profanity from the pseudo-right. Vice versa, when I expose the previous Democratic administration's dark deeds, such as the architects of the Libya-Syria wars, or Fethullah Gulen terror organization creation and fortification, I become the revered hero and mavericks of the right, while the viciously attacked and cussed target of the pseudo-left. Just as this ludicrous right and left divide, based on biased selectiveness, ignorance, and denial not being a real representation of the philosophical and ideological differences between the right and the left, what we see being painted as the new patriotic nationalism and its rise has nothing to do with either patriotism or real nationalism. True nationalism is not and should not be an end result of ignorance. Real nationalism does not equal denial. One's level of nationalism is not based on one's degree of hatred of others. Real nationalism does not flourish and thrive upon ignorance. The value of human life and dignity is not measured based on nationality, race, color, ethnicity, or religion. And difference does not and should not equal conflict. But pay attention. The media, pseudo-alternative media outlets, and social media are all telling you the opposite. Unfortunately, they are being effective. They are planting the seeds of hatred, building the dividing walls, and by doing so, paving and smoothing the warpath for their masters. Distorting real nationalism and creating false nationalism has been their method of choice. Just pause. Remember the time leading to World War II. From the worshipped leaders such as Mussolini, Hitler, and Stalin, to blinded and misplaced nationalism plaguing people from Germany and Russia to Japan and Italy. And think about the consequences and cost. Does history have to always go in circles? Does it have to repeat itself? Please think. As George Bernard Shaw put it, if history repeats itself and the unexpected always happens, how incapable must man be of learning from experience? Thank you all. This is Sibel Edmonds reporting for Newsbud from Turkey.